There is a huge part of adulthood that no one really prepares us for. And I'm not talking about the responsibility or the work. I'm talking about the realization that we are the adults, and when or how that realization hits you mentally, and you realize, yeah, it's not even a joke. You are an actual adult, and this is it sounds crazy when I say it, but if we really think about it, everything I've been told growing up of what adulthood could be or what we expected it to be is not quite accurate. And when we were kids, if maybe some of us could relate, when we were kids, we used to think adults just had everything under control. And as kids, we really were not we were really unsure of the stuff we used to do, and we always knew that as we, or at least we felt that as we grew older, we'd be at least slightly more sure of ourselves and with the things we do. And we used to see as adults as people who were confident, people who had a path, a clear path as to what they're doing and why they're doing it. But then days turn to weeks, then to months and to years, and slowly we are growing older, but there's a sort of dissonance between what we thought adulthood could be versus what we are personally experiencing. And I'm not sure if many people could relate, but you don't really feel as confident as you thought you'd be. And things don't really seem to be as clear as how they appeared. And it's like a part of us starts realizing that maybe those adults we used to look up to weren't really sure what they're doing, and they just pushed on silently, and they created this appearance that everything is going to be okay. But now we are the adults and things don't look okay, and we start asking ourselves questions. Are we the problem? Why are we not like them? And this really got me into deep thinking about myself and the expectations I had as a kid and the person I thought I'd become. And I compared that to the person I am now. And it really hit me that they're not aligned. And so, yeah, it's crazy if you really, really genuinely think about it. We were told when we were kids about how adulthood could be, and to a large extent, it's like we either didn't really understand what we were being told, and that's for the lucky of us who had the lucky people who had adults who gave them some form of guidance, and then there are those who literally had no guidance at all. And what I mean by that, there are numerous examples I had in my head. The first one being the most obvious one when you're told there won't be any more guidance. And it's one thing to say to someone, but it's also another thing to actually experience it. And back to my previous point, you're told to believe in yourself as you grow older, but you find yourself in scenarios which make you become a bit more rigid, a bit more careful and pragmatic. And to some extent, this really does hit in your confidence, but you tell yourself you still have your confidence. but to some extent you really don't. And for those lucky instances, for example, whereby you actually do something and be successful, to a large uh, extent, subconsciously, you feel like it's expected because nobody or very few people actually applaud you for trying or for actually doing something well and right. And it doesn't really feel as good or as fulfilling. And on the flip side, when you actually fail, it doesn't feel like a lesson because as you fail again and again and again, it starts feeling like a part of who you are. And you could have an equal number of successes and an equal number of failures, but the success won't mean as much, and the failure will make you feel like that's actually who you are. And you're doing all this with a clear path, a clear step by step path of where I'm actually going. Because if you're honest with ourselves, we just follow what we see everybody else is doing. If I finish school, I go find a job and then I go make money and then I save a little and then, yeah. And those bits and pieces of us that we had in childhood, which would have questioned the decisions we make, has been shushed. It doesn't talk and it's just you, zero confidence, completely unsure. You look around and everybody else seems sure, and nobody is really helping you out because to some extent you shouldn't be asking for help. You're not a kid anymore, and there's so much going on, and to some extent you feel like you're losing control, but then you're not, and it's all messed up. And so all this, there are actually a few of us who were lucky enough to be told, okay, this and this might happen. You might feel like you're not doing it right. But it's one thing to be told, and then it's another thing to actually experience it. And that's for those who actually had guidance. And then there's the larger majority who had no guidance. And they're literally going through a path with no sense of direction. They just know they shouldn't go back. Actually, not even sure if they shouldn't go back. And it's a sad realization that we have because the picture we had in our minds of how it become isn't aligned with the person I am. And that hits deep. And so this really makes somebody go inward and realize you really go through a lot of doubt about ourselves. We go through a lot of loneliness because you don't really feel that the person next to you understands you. And the person next to you feels the same. Because even if you both feel lost, to a great extent actually, his or her life story is quite different from yours. So you can't really understand each other. And so you're lonely, regardless of whether there's someone or if there are people around you or not. And this also subsequently leads to a lot of anxiety because we act without certainty. And all this is happening as time is moving along. And we're, we are becoming day or a week or a month older, eventually a year, and you're still not certain. And it's terrible because on the outside, everybody else seem like they're doing better. as we grow older, but they're not. And this makes you more anxious. And it's just a cycle that worsens itself. And so, what can such a realization make somebody do? And I think, and maybe I always say I might look, many years in the future, I might look back at this video and laugh and say maybe I was naive. But personally, for me, going through all that uh, deep thought really brought me to a couple of conclusions. And it made me realize maybe I don't have to act with certainty and take ownership of success and failures, meaning the successes don't define me just as much as the failures don't. And all I do is just see them as part of who I am becoming and realizing that each plays its own role. Successes play their own role, failures play their own roles too. So it's just taking full ownership. And it's understanding that I don't have to be 100% sure, but I'll have to do it anyway. And I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm going to do it as best as I can without fear. And to sum it up, I think probably growing up isn't about knowing. It's not about knowing as much, but it's about acting regardless of the uncertainty. And yeah, this really makes me think that maybe all this wasn't something that could be explained to us or something that could be warned, because the only way to truly understand adulthood is to live through the adulthood itself. And it's to understand that it's part of the process of becoming, and that it's okay, and that as long as you don't give up on yourself, everything is going to make sense. It may not make sense today or tomorrow, but someday it will make sense.